Everybody, welcome back to the World Crypto Economic Forum brought to you by Celsius. We have a little switcheroo in the schedule. Next up, we have Jeremy Berger. Jeremy is the co-founder and COO of Arival Bank, a venture-backed digital banking startup. After graduating from the University of South Florida, he worked in corporate investment and wealth management before shifting gears to tech and startups. I'll let you take it away, Jeremy.
Thank you so much, Tatiana. It's a pleasure to be here today. Let me start by saying something that you should all already know. Banks will die if they don't start believing in us. It's no secret that the crypto generation is still disconnected from the banking system. Startups and entrepreneurs come in many different shapes and sizes, whether you're running a crypto exchange in Singapore or a protocol in Florida. The path to getting a bank account is not an easy one. And I was tasked about 4 years ago with an incredible challenge of building a licensed crypto-friendly bank from scratch. And fast forwarding almost 4.5 years later, here we are. I built Arival Bank, which is one of the first licensed digital banks in the US that's designed for global crypto companies. And today what we're going to focus on is really my story and our journey of building a bank and how I would go about it if I were to do it all over again. First objective when building any bank is identifying the problem that you're trying to solve. When there's a problem, there is a pain, and then there's a profit. And our story started really in 2017, if you remember, was sort of the climax of the ICO market. And I was running a fintech venture capital fund in Singapore at the time and had a chance to really engage with dozens and dozens of different blockchain and crypto related businesses that were asking me the same fundamental question: where can they open up a bank account? And I shortly realized that the problem was really universal. Banks in places like Thailand, Australia, Israel, Canada, here in the US, were really disconnecting these different types of crypto-related businesses. And for a few reasons. So first of all, banks are incredibly bureaucratic. Banks typically have thousands or hundreds of thousands of employees. And it's incredibly hard to re-engineer processes internally to really support new lines of business. Additionally, banks historically make most of their revenue from retail individuals, from international transaction fees, from larger institutional clients and mortgages. And their bread and butter historically is not really serving these small to medium-sized crypto businesses. And for me and really Arival, the beginning of our story started by talking to clients, starting to talk to really different types of businesses and entrepreneurs that are underbanked, both by traditional banks and digital banks. And that led us to really build a crypto-friendly bank from scratch. And where we paid the most attention to is really compliance. And I'll talk about that in a second. When you're building any financial institution, really where you want to invest most of your time and resources is really building a risk-based approach, not just policies, procedures, but really complementing it with different technology that powers your compliance officers' lives day to day. And today, fundamentally, traditional banks and even digital banks have a very hard time onboarding these types of clients because their processes are outdated, they're manual, they're time consuming. And bottom line, they're not really designed for these different types of crypto related businesses. Whether you're running an OTC desk, an exchange, a wallet, a Bitcoin ATM, so on and so forth, banks are having a very hard time adapting to the new reality of serving crypto related businesses. And for us, we built not just a crypto-friendly bank, but we built it on really 3 core aspects that I'll cover today. First of which is our own US-based banking license. Second is really the infrastructure that we built, the middleware, the APIs, the backend, the core, the front end, which is the web app and the mobile app additionally. And last but not least, as I already mentioned, is really our compliance approach. So not just policies, procedures, but we actually built our own in-house compliance engine named Arival Identification. And like I mentioned, these 3 aspects is really what we need to focus on, and really anybody needs to focus on when they go about building a bank. Starting with the license, probably the most sensitive topic. So when you want to deliver any sort of banking experience, you typically have 2 options, right? So first is to apply for your own license, and the latter is to actually partner up with a traditional bank, in most cases, a bank partner or a sponsor bank, as it's called here in the fintech market in the US. The latter is not very efficient because you're relying on your banking partner and their risk approach. And at the same time, you're quite limited and restricted to the different types of customers you can focus on, the different types of products you can offer, and certainly the geographies that you can cover. The former option, which is getting your own license, has some advantages and has some disadvantages, which I'll cover as well. But having your own license obviously gives you the flexibility in terms of the different types of customers you want to focus, and geographically speaking, where you really want to scale to on a global level as well. When you look at a banking license, you really need to look at a few key factors that you analyze. First is the regulator that actually oversees you. Our license is actually based in Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico is unique for a few reasons. So first of which, it's a US territory, so it's effectively a US-based banking license. Second of which, it's very internationally friendly, so it allows us to onboard different types of individuals and entities across the world. And last but not least, it's crypto friendly. So we actually have one of the few licenses in the US that allow you to offer full stack banking services, both in fiat and equally on the crypto side. So today on the market, when you look at different banking licenses, if it's in places like Singapore, Malaysia, Lithuania, or here in the US, you really need to consider timeline, how fast you can get the license, the different types of products you can offer, and the regulator themselves in terms of their risk appetite, and historically the different types of banks that they supervise. Now, with that all said, what I've learned firsthand is that speed is critical. It's not about being the best per se, it's about being first to the market. And when you apply for the license, there's the opportunity cost that you need to weigh. You can certainly spend 2 or 3 years easily to get the license. And what that means is that the market is changing dramatically, and you're missing different opportunities to really capture that market share and focus on different customer segments that are evolving on a monthly basis. And that's something that you definitely need to consider. When you apply for a banking license, you are making some hard decisions of really speeding up time to market. And second part of building a bank is certainly the infrastructure, as I mentioned before. When we applied for a license, we were keen on really partnering up with different providers on the market, both for the compliance stack, both for the core banking and the back office, which was fine at that point in time, because our focus was applying for a license as efficiently as possible and making sure that our application was as high level as possible as well. But where we started to diverge the last couple of years is really owning the tech stack as much as possible in-house, especially the back office and the core. Because when we need to integrate with different payment providers or different crypto infrastructure providers as well, we need to make sure that we can do that fast and efficiently. When you rely on a third-party infrastructure provider, especially for your back office and core, you need to rely on their resources and their bandwidth. And this can obviously deter your timing as an agile, up-and-coming, early-stage licensed bank. And last but not least is compliance. So there's this misconception that money corrupts people, but the reality is that people corrupt money. And today, one of the fundamental challenges on the market is that traditional banks have a very hard time onboarding clients, especially from international jurisdictions. It's very time-consuming and costly. And bottom line, as I mentioned before, it's not designed for these different types of crypto-related customers that we're focusing on today. We see it a little bit different. We see it as a frictionless onboarding process embedded into the user journey. And what we want to achieve is giving our customers the ability to bank elsewhere if they need to really serve themselves elsewhere. And that's where the network effect comes into place. If you can onboard a crypto-related business, then they should have an easier ability going forward to work with different types of tools, providers, and products as well. Now, I'll pause for a second. I mentioned really the 3 key aspects of building a bank. One is the license and how you go about analyzing it both on a regulatory level and on a product and customer level as well. I hit home on really the infrastructure and investing into building that tech stack, the APIs from the beginning, because that will save you time later when you need to integrate and really start scaling with different providers that help you get to different markets, whether it's banking as a service providers, payment providers, yield and staking providers, so on and so forth, and compliance. But now what I want to focus on is the market. When you go to really any regulator, they ask you how you're going to stand apart. And you need to know your usual suspects, for lack of better words, very well, whether it's traditional banks in the US, offshore banks in sketchy jurisdictions, quote unquote, or small payment providers in places like Estonia, the UK, Lithuania. But bottom line, you need to find your distinction. You need to find your sweet spot. And for Arival, what we've learned is really serving international customers puts us apart from the rest of the pack. And for any up and coming bank, if you think about building a bank for yourself, you need to think about your unique advantage, bottom line, every day. And as I mentioned, we're different, not just because of our branding, our design, how we communicate with customers, But we really put the focus around serving this niche of underbanked businesses and entrepreneurs that have a very hard time opening up bank accounts. But our focus is not necessarily just domestic, but serving international customers as well. We've scaled to nearly 50 countries around the world, and most of our customers are coming from not just the US, but places like the UK, wider EU, Singapore, Hong Kong, Canada, and really global footprint that we're really proud of. And that's where we see the market moving. It's not just being able to serve US-based customers or regional-based customers, but really being able to onboard cross-border. And we like to say we're the arrival of the rival, the arrival of a digital bank for the abnormal, a rival for banks unwilling to serve you. If you guys have any questions on how to build a licensed crypto-friendly bank from scratch, you can connect with me online. And I would suggest you guys obviously should check out our banking platform, and you can sign up at Arival.com. Thank you very much for listening in.
Thanks very much, Jeremy. That was great. Okay, folks, we're going to take a small little break, and then we're going to bring up our next speaker. So stay tuned. You've got about 2 minutes. Run to the bathroom, grab a coffee or tea, and come say hi. And also, by the way, Jeremy, I don't know if you know about this, but we have a chat room going, and I'm sure that some people will have some follow-up questions for you. So make sure that you're chatting with everybody in there. Thanks.
Awesome.